Okay, you can start now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Trust you're all having a good day. My name is Abby, and I am one of the mentors in the Zuri training. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's career talk. If this is your first time attending or your first contact with Zuri, then know that.
Go on.
Okay, I can hear myself.
Maybe you have YouTube on.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. That was on my end. Okay, so if this is your first time attending or your first contact with Zuri, then know that the Zuri training is a free program for complete beginners. And the goal of the training is to get its participants to the point where they can self-learn and continue to improve on themselves in their chosen track. Now, through the course of the training, we've had events like this where we invited some brilliant minds to talk us through certain topics. We've had the likes of Tolu Fagola, Christian So, and Binga Richmond with the program. And today we have Anid. You're very welcome to today's career talk. How are you doing? Anid, can you hear me? You're muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. I asked how you're doing.
Oh, hi. I'm doing good. Sorry, my browser crashed, so I actually was offline for a while.
Okay, that's fine. So Anyedi is going to talk us through choosing a career in tech for the next couple of minutes. If you have questions, do well to note it down, as we'll dedicate a couple of minutes to answer your questions at the end of the talk. Anyedi, you have our attention.
Sure. Okay. Hi everyone. So my name is Anyedi. Very brief introduction about myself. I will try to see if I can share some portions on my screen. Let me do this. Hope this works well. No, this is not it. 1 second. Let me know if you can see my screen now.
Yeah, that's your screen.
Okay, cool. So I know the broad conversation is around choosing a career in technology, but considering that a lot of people on this call, might be actually getting started or getting started with this program, I think it's sort of interesting and a little bit more holistic. Take a step back and talk about getting started with a career in technology, and I'll do this as a prelude to eventually jumping into choosing a career in technology. So just a bit of background information. So right now I work as a developer relations program manager at Google, DevRel, dev advocacy, developer experience, interesting career technologies. And I'll give you a little bit of a segue into how I started doing all that. But just before joining Google, I've been at Google for about 5 years. And before joining Google, I've had kind of like a varied and a diverse career. And some of the companies I've worked for, AfroCab was like a going to be a local competitor or local rival or playing in the same space as Uber and Easy Taxi and Taxify at the time. Taxify is now Bolt. And then I worked in a recruitment company that was into testing. Some of you may have had interactions with a company called Dragnet that does automated testing and screening and sort of like HR related functions in an automated way. I also had a stint at 234next.com, which was like a whistleblower website that was really very active. Interestingly, about 10, 11 years ago, or 8 years, between 10 and 8 years ago. It's very much like you would see something like Sahara Reporters now and everything, even though Sahara Reporters didn't exist at the time. And then I also had a stint at Paga for about 1 year. I've done a couple of other odd jobs and other smaller, tasks, just before and during these phases. But one of the things I would like to just, spread and give some, context about is how, my career in tech, transitioned through this, various companies and these various experiences, and how, to some extent, it's not totally about choosing a career in technology. Sometimes it's about a technology career actually choosing you. Sometimes I give advice and I speak to people and I say, apart from just choosing your career, you can also let your career choose you. And it's actually, not completely wrong. You can follow me on Twitter, Anyedudo. That's where I, try to share a lot of my thoughts, even though I've been quite quiet over the last couple of months. And I'm quite active there, and I tend to share opportunities, participate in some conversations, and share my thoughts. Anyedudo is also sort of like my social media handle. So in a couple of my other, I would say, dormant accounts on Instagram, Facebook, even Gmail, and all that, you can find me with Anyedudo. So when I talk about, getting started with a career in tech or choosing a career in technology, I'm sort of adapting this presentation from a similar talk I've given. Some of the things I would sort of, jump at and try to share a little bit of light on is, where do I start? What resources do I need? How long will it take to become an expert or to become valuable? Where do I find things like help, support, mentorship? And quite importantly, how do I get my first job? If that's going to be a freelance gig, somebody offering you to do something for them, or that's actually getting a full-time job in a startup or a big enterprise. It could be a big company, it could be a small company. How do you navigate that sort of, I don't have any experience, I don't know anything, I have just learned something, I want to be productive, I want to, earn some money, I want to gain some experience. So while there are no hard and fast answers to any of these questions, I don't even think there's any correct answer to these questions. I'll try a little bit to share a little bit about this, and then we can step into things around, choosing a career in technology. So for me, I think the most important thing about choosing a career in technology, getting started with a career in technology, is actually just getting started. And for me, what really rings very important or very, fundamental is just getting started. It may seem like just two words, but if you think of all the things that can detract you from just getting started and all the excuses you can give yourself, if you're based in Nigeria or somewhere else in Africa, there's 1,001 reasons: internet, power, who to support you, resources, finances. There's so many reasons why you should not get started. The second aspect to this getting started, and I'm sharing this and even giving myself advice, is the fact that sometimes along your career path, you actually need to start all over again. Not like starting all over again from the beginning, but you need to get started. For instance, if you want to change your career, for instance, if you want to focus on getting a new role, or you want to branch into a different career path, so maybe right now you're thinking of becoming a web developer or a front-end designer, and then you start getting interested in things like Internet of Things, or you start hearing about machine learning and data science and artificial intelligence. At some point, you might find that you just have to get started again. And there's so many reasons why you would say, I shouldn't get started or I can't get started. But the most important thing is, if you actually want to achieve any of those things, or you want to make that sort of huge difference, big leap in your career, you probably have to just sort of get started. And the trick about getting started is you can't wait for everything to be lined up. You have to start where you are and start with exactly what you have, right? Trying to wish that, oh, I wish I had this, or when I get this, when I get a MacBook, when I have this fantastic laptop, or as soon as I can get a broadband connection at home, or when I have enough money, or when I travel abroad, or when I get accepted into a program. Many of those things are not going to be immediately available for you, and they might hinder you with getting started. And there's a lot of resources, and like I said, there's really no perfect answer because everyone's different, So some people work with books, some people work with videos, some people prefer getting hands-on with code labs and tutorials. You want to learn a new framework, front-end framework, React, or Vue. And then some people might decide to go read a Vue book. Some people might decide to go to YouTube and go and download a bunch of videos or watch bunch of videos. Some people might just like want to go into the documentation and start with a bunch of code labs or hands-on tutorials. This could be the same thing if you're going into something like, UX, or, you want to be a product manager. And I'll say a few things about this. One of them sometimes can be very effective as things around boot camps. Nowadays, a lot of those boot camps and probably some of the things you're doing now are completely online. But let's not forget that there's an offline world, and some people really crave for that in-person connection where you can be in the same place with 3 or 4 or 5 people and have a communication with maybe an instructor or a mentor or a teacher, whatever you call it, But most importantly, and for many of you on this call, I think you all have taken a huge step already, which is you have gotten started. And when it comes to building your career in technology, choosing your career in technology, or eventually even like pivoting your career in technology, the first and most important thing you need to do is just get started, clear all the hurdles that might prevent you from, getting started. The other piece of advice that I would really, 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 really like to share is it's going to feel like drinking from a fire hose, right? This is an analogy that people use a lot. Like, there is going to be so much information out there that sometimes it's very difficult to filter or to even catch what you need to quench your desire, your test, or the kind of aspiration you have. This is probably the simplest and easiest mistake to make, where at a time you look left, there's this resource, there's that resource, there's this opportunity, that boot camp, there's this how-to, there's so many YouTube videos, there's so many blogs, so many recommendations. And I can honestly, how would I put it, come level with you that throughout your career, if you don't learn to be able to do a little bit of filtering and cutting down on things, you'll be feeling this experience or this feeling like there's so much information out there. Like, I don't even know which one to choose. I don't know where to start. I don't know whether I should continue doing this one or I should stop and come back and change course and do something else. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where it's like you just want a little bit of information, in quote, to quench your thirst, and then you go and open a resource or download a book or pay for a course, and just from the beginning, there's so much information coming at you and so many other pieces of advice and so many other sort of directions, just feel quite comfortable with this. There's sort of like tricks and tips to get away from this, but it's very likely that you find yourself in this kind of situation. Okay, so finally, I think one of the most important things that you would find is for you to actually choose, settle in, grow in your career. At some point, you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. For many people who come on programs like this, many people who are switching careers, you may not have had a technology background. You may have hated math, statistics, computer science, programming, logic, all your life, whether you're in an undergrad or you finish secondary school or you're even a graduate, you may have not liked some specific, things, but at the point where you actually need to sort of like pick something, choose something, hold on to something, build on something, you have to be very comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone. Really, really very comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone. Quote here from Arthur C. Clarke says, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. So the things you think you cannot do or maybe too difficult for you, oftentimes probably is what you probably need to, just like embrace and take a leap of faith to do. And then finally, one thing I really want to share is, as you go ahead with this, your career choice,
Okay, I think Niri cut off a bit. Let's just give him a couple of minutes to join back. In the meantime, you can get your questions ready for Anidi. You can just note it down so that when... Ajayi, can you please mute yourself? Okay, so please get your questions ready so that when he joins back and completes his talk, he'll go straight into Q&A. Let's also give him a few minutes. Okay, so while we wait for Anedi to join back, we have a couple of people on the call. Let's get to know some of you as to the reason why you decided to join tech. Who would like to go first? You can just raise your hand up, use the raise hand feature on Zoom so that I'll call on you, you'll mute yourself, and you give us a brief talk on why you decided to go into tech. You can also turn on your video if you want. Manuela, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm currently a human resource manager at a health tech firm, and I've been working closely with our products and our design team, seeing how they are building the proprietary product that we use for patient care. I've always had the keen interest in design, but I think that further amplified when I started working close with our UX UI team and our product team. So when the opportunity for Zuri came, I was really very pleased, most especially at the fact that it was free, and it's really been, very detailed, very rich for something that is free. And so really grateful to the Zuri team and, all the wonderful team that has put this together. But I'm really hoping that I can build a career in UX UI and build HR products that will enhance people's experience. So that's what's driving my change or my career shift from HR to tech. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Is there anyone else who would like to be as brief as Emanuela and tell us why you decided to go into tech? John, Ohio, please unmute and go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I would like to appreciate and thank the I4G and Zuri team for this magnificent opportunity because I still shock myself till today. Barely 3 months ago, I didn't know jack about UI, UX or design or tech. So looking at my progress, I'm just amazed because I just dedicated my time to give. I just decided to dedicate my past 3 months to tech and the program. So I've seen the immense progress and improvement. I've always wanted to be in tech. I studied civil engineering. While I was in school, I wanted to do tech, but I just felt like it was already too late. But like 5 years now, I kept saying it's too late. I'm already in civil engineering, but it had always been at the back of my mind. So when this opportunity came, I grabbed it. So before the start date, I made sure I gather background information about tech, enrolled in some quick-paced programs. So it gave me basic information about UI UX. So when the program started, it was easier for me and felt like my kind of thing. So I'm enjoying this progress, and I still want to say thank you to everybody that facilitated this program, and a big thank you to Mr. Zylox. So God bless you all.
Yeah. Joyce?
I hope you guys heard me because I don't know if I didn't get any response.
We heard
Well
you.
done, we heard you.
Oh, all right, thank
We
you.
heard you, John. Did I break up a bit? Oh, okay. Is there any mentor who would like to tell us as well why they decided to go into their particular track of choice? Any mentor? We have a ton of mentors here. Okay. You'd have to unmute. Go ahead, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Chinam. So basically, I'm not one of the mentors, but I want to share my own story as well too.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So I studied physics in the university, but why I gave a turn to IT was since in my university days, I saw myself it seems like I saw myself studying a wrong course. I studied physics in the university, and while I was in the university, I was seeing myself being pushed to the computer science department. Whenever I go for industrial training, it's always in the IT department. I'm always, I'm always pushed to. So, and how I started my programming life is because I had to bump into one of the Google pages, and I saw a different outlook. I was like, what happened? How did this thing happen? And I tried to know, and finally I got to know about web development, and I said I want to learn how to do this. I started learning how to do it since 2014, and I've been trying my best I've been trying and trying, although I wasn't that steady until 2 years ago. I had to become very much steady. I became a front-end web developer. But the rating is I kept learning and learning and learning and equally practicing as well too. So I hope my story was okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay.
I was hoping to see a lot of hands up at this point so that we can hear more of you talk. Tulope, why am I so tempted to call you? Do you want to go ahead?
I'm actually very shy. Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. My story is going to be very brief. I actually studied computer science in school, and we all know that in school they barely teach us programming in school. So I think after school, I've always liked
Hello?
to program. While I went for IT, I did a little bit of programming. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. There's just someone
Okay.
else talking.
So while I did my IT, I did a little bit of programming. But while I was done with school, I forgot about programming. Somehow, I've always had this interest of I want to program, I want to program. Somehow, I attended few boot camps that I didn't get to finish. So when I saw Zuri, I jumped on Zuri that no, I have to join Zuri, and I was finished. So and I must say that this program has been really amazing. Like I've enjoyed every bit of this program from the beginning to this very point, and that's really helped me. I would say that I'm confident enough to maybe take jobs, and at least at this point, I like that's really been an amazing journey. Thank you.
That wasn't so hard. Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate it. So right now, before we go on to ask another question, I'm going to put a mentor on the spot. We all know him as sophisticated dev on Slack, and we're going to put him on the spot now to hear from him why he decided to go into UI UX. So, Soph, please go ahead, unmute, and let's hear your output.
This is not good. This is not good. I did not ask for this. Okay. First of all, what I studied in school was agricultural engineering, and I'm someone that does many things. I think my first encounter with tech was when they were doing the regular teaching of coding. I think Fortran was my first encounter with tech, and I did very well, but it wasn't enough to make me more interested in tech till I started learning HTML and CSS. That should be my final year. And after that, okay, you may wonder why I answer sophisticated dev as a designer. That's basically because I started as a developer. So the story was somehow long. When I was looking for a name to use in HNG internship, but I'll still get to how I got to HNG internship. So I'm just giving an overview. So I had to choose sophisticated dev because I was already answering sophisticated as a nickname. So I do so many things before tech. I'm a chef, I cook, I cater for events, weddings, and what have you. I also do different works, electrical work. I do bricklaying, medicine, what have you, any kind of handwork. I do them just to get by. So I think I've also done dry cleaning for more than 6 months. So I think I've done so many things. And those are things that I was doing to get by till I went for service. After my service year, I came back, and a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, introduced me to Hotels.ng internship because she served with Hotels.ng, and she introduced me to them. And I went in as a developer because I already had knowledge of HTML and CSS. and I wanted to be a developer. I was designing mostly graphics before then. So I went into the program. I did my first task, my second task, and I knew that if I continue like this, I will not survive. I will not survive the next 1 week as a developer. So I did, for my team then, I did a tax, logo tax for them. So it's made me to enter the next stage. And I was like, wow. So with design, I can actually go to another stage. While working with DTOP was like very difficult for me. So I switched to design. So by maintaining my name, Sophisticated Dev, so I can't be answering Sophisticated Designer. It's too long. So yeah, during those times, I had to learn quickly. I had to read a lot. I think reading helped me more than I learned more from watching videos, but reading helped me a lot. So I had to read, go to Medium. I went to Medium. Medium was one of the best things that happened to me. And many people skip that part. Going to Medium, looking for articles to read on design trends. You see different things about design, and I'm talking about design, even development, different trends that are in development. Although in developing, for developers, there are a lot of things to read. There are a lot of dev tool articles to read and what have you. So reading, trying, practicing, I kept on practicing. There was I was begging for tax, like to be promoted to the. I was practically begging because what I did was below par. So if you have worked with MarkSM before, you see that you know that if you do anything that is below, and if you do an average work, you are not moving to the next stage. So I was begging Xylos to give me a tax. I was begging Xylos to give me a tax to get to the next stage. So everybody started somewhere. I had to leave every other thing I was doing. So during the internship, I think this is worthy of mention. I had no light. I just came back from service. The money I saved from service, I've already used it to do some renovation in my house. So practically, I was running on red. I had to go to the market. There's a place that they do produce what approve. So if you know anything about people that produce what approve, you know that they need light 24/7. So I had to be there because there's light. Even if there's no light, they will put gen. So they used to charge phone. I'll just sit down there on top of waterproof and plug my system. And I was using the system I bought the system when I was in second year. That was the system that I was using. So I'll plug it there. I'll be charging it, and they were very kind to me. So they allowed me to use their shop. And it started as I want to charge my system too. I'll continue doing my work, which was the internship, doing tax there. So I'll leave my home like someone going to work in the morning. I'll get to the market with the noise. People are saying, oh, this Yahoo boy. He's in the market doing Yahoo, and every time he's pressing his system. So, but I had to, because I knew what I studied. I loved what I studied. I practiced it. I even set up farms for people then. But I knew that if I want to get something higher, I need to do something out of the ordinary, because many people graduated with me and they didn't have something doing. I went to service. What I was teaching was mathematics. So I knew that if coming back from service and if I continue in this particular field, I may not make what I want to sustain me and my family at that particular point. So I needed to switch. So that my friend that introduced me to HNG asked me one question. Ask me that question, and everybody should be able to answer that question, because at each point in your life where you want to give up, that question comes up. The answer to that question helps you to keep on. So that question that she asked me was, why do I want to learn programming. Then it was programming I entered for. So my reply was, I'm an engineer, so I want something as a side fun hustle or something at the side that I'll just be doing. She said no, that if I have it in mind, then if I have it in mind that it's just for fun, when things start getting tough, I'll easily quit. So she now told me that people have become great by being programmers, developers, and designers. So I had to have it in my mind that I'm going into this field to make something out of it, make a career out of it, to make money and also to help lives. So that stuck with me. And every time I want to, during my internship, we started at about 3,000 something, if I can recall correctly, or 2,000 something people, and we are only, I don't know, 80 something that's finished the internship. So it's not actually like, the internship is not like Zuri, that everybody goes along to the end, no. So people will get evicted every week, just like Big Brother Nigeria. People get evicted every week. So that's how I tried. Every time I want to quit, there are times that, this is now, many people are complaining now about tax and not doing tax and people grading you. It was actually times 10 tougher. But I had to continue on that. And after the internship, I came to Lagos for the first time. Yeah, so that's an interesting story. When I came, I'm telling you not like a story. I'm not telling you like a story just for saying sake. Every point I'm trying to make has a bearing on what made me who I am right now, and even what made me to keep on trying to give back to others after some years after that. So when I came to Lagos, I came for the meetup, HNG meetup, finalist meetup, and I was asking a question. That question was, can someone that doesn't have anything doing relocate to Lagos? And because I know that here is where the work is mostly. There are work other places too, but here's where the bulk of the work is. So that's actually when I was told that you can't survive in Lagos without having something doing. So either you have money or you have something doing, and I didn't have any. So fast forward to, I stubbornly stayed in Lagos for 2 weeks and seeing whether I will have opportunities to go for interviews and the rest, and I didn't get any. So during that 2 weeks, I won one competition, fun cooking competition, and I went to collect my prize. And after that, I went back. Okay, I think I need this back, so I have to cut my story short and finish up later.
Welcome back. Thank you very much.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Crazy. My fiber connection went down, so I'm on Glow right now, and I hear.
Glow is not trustworthy. Glow is what should be worse than anything that you were using before.
Oh.
Yeah, this feels like it's not going to be strong enough. We put off my video for a while. Does that help? Does this help at all?
Yes, somehow. You're breaking up a bit, but it's a lot clearer than before.
Yeah, I realized you guys lost me halfway into the presentation, so that was very sad. I was talking and I didn't know that I had disconnected. I don't know, maybe if there are any questions that came through or people have had that I could jump into, since I just have only audio right now?
Yes, some questions came in on YouTube. Let me
Okay.
get them. So one of the questions, person said, please, how can I balance coming from a non-tech career that is really demanding and starting a new career in tech?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I think the first thing, I'll speak slowly just in case this breaks up. The first thing about understanding a career in technology is that a career in technology is very, very broad. When I say very broad, a career in technology, there's a couple of motivations, to be very honest, and I want to be as open and as honest as possible. Right now, a lot of people believe that technology careers are hot and then the pay is very good. And I think it's totally okay to be motivated by, let me say, financial to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to have enough money, to cut it short. The second aspect of this is that you could be motivated by the fact that you want to build things, you want to create things, you want to bring new products to life, you want to, make life easier for people, innovation, right? That could be one sort of motivation for a career in technology. And then the hardcore career in technology, if I put it that way, could be that you really want to write code, you want to build algorithms, models, new languages, frameworks. You just want, whatever your motivation is, that will sort of determine the kind of career choice you make. Now, if you're coming from a non-tech background, the first thing I would strongly suggest, and I may be wrong, but I'm not very sure that you immediately want to dive into the hardcore, the most difficult, most complicated logic, statistics, advanced mathematics, and things like that about coding. You may want to have a career in technology, work for a great company, a startup, Flutterwave, work for a company like Netflix or Google or stuff like that. And then if you look at it from that sort of point of view, the industry you want to be in, the company you want to be, the kind of rewards you want to have, then it's not necessary that you need a hardcore career path. So there are other career paths that span everything from legal to human resources, hiring, technical recruitment, to program management, to project management, to product management, to design, to sales, to sort of like, customer support, not necessarily not just answering phones, but like, business analysis, realizing what the problem is. So for me, I think if you're coming from a non-tech career background and you're switching into tech, as much as a lot of times your first interaction might be coding, don't limit yourself to the fact that you only need to know how to write code. If you look at the tech industry right now, some of the biggest problems in the tech industry where people are looking for solutions, where even a lot of big multinational corporations are finding a lot of difficulty or a lot of, headwinds and solving. There are things around privacy, there are things around security, there are things around, data privacy, data sovereignty, where does data stay? There are things around even interaction with government, in which case to understand things like server, where is the code hosted, where is it located, you need to understand that there's code and it's being pushed, it's written, it's hosted on the server, but you now need to understand all the other areas, the politics around it, the monetization, how are advertisers making money, how are some products free, and what are some companies doing with your data or tracking you and a lot of information like that. So as you switch your career into technology, I would totally say try and get involved in a little bit of code, as much code as possible, so that you understand the industry. But start realizing that in technology, I work for a company like Google. I can speak a little about Google, not speaking for Google, but there are business managers, there are product managers, there's HR, hiring, how to hire tech people, how to hire non-tech people. There are leadership skills, there are team building. And then when you go into a product, there is product management, just like thinking of how are people going to use this product. There are things around user research. There's technical writing where you have to write documentation or how to or manuals for the product. There are things around copywriting and content management where if we bring out a new Pixel phone, somebody has to think of what's the experience, how is it going to look, what are we going to write to advertise it, what is the keyword, what's the catchphrase, how are we going to present that product for users or for people, human beings, to say, oh, I want to buy this, I want to switch to this, I want to change that. So as you come from a core non-tech background and you think of a career in technology or in the technology industry, or think for working for a fancy startup or a big corporation, always remember that those skills you bring are very important. Give you a classic example. One of the hottest industries in Nigerian startup space now, raising money, people looking very good, is the fintech industry. But there is no fintech without financial knowledge, money, lending, investment. So if you're coming from a banking sector, if you've worked in the bank, if you've worked in insurance, if you've worked in credit, you are going to be part of a team, or you're going to bring that skill set to the table where you're saying, oh, this is not how it works. This is not how we calculate this. This is not how we, can, make this work. This is not what investors are looking for. When somebody puts money for savings or is going to, get involved in risk, here are some of the things he or she is thinking of. So you need to be very aware that your domain knowledge from any other place is very relevant. Even in psychology, a lot of the products we use today, they think about user behavior. What is the user going to do? What is he going to press? What is he likely not to do? How will he end up using this product? How can we observe him using the product? And how can we draw some analysis on what feature to create next, or what feature to drop, or what to prioritize? So all these things are very, very non-tech, but are very critical in the technology industry, technology companies, and even in technology teams. I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Andy. There is another question. Those on the call, if you have a question, do want to raise your hands so that I'll call you to unmute yourself. At the moment, we just keep taking YouTube questions till there's anyone on the call who wants to ask. So another question is, when is the appropriate time to push our ideas into a startup?
That's an interesting question. When is the appropriate time to push ideas into a startup? There's a framework that that is used, I think, even in startup school and a lot of the companies that come out of, come through, YC and all that, about some of the 4 things that really make a successful startup, right? So the first thing is an idea, right? And there's so many ideas out there, and it is completely valid, in my opinion, to have an idea. When you think of building an idea, or when you come up with an idea, the next thing is to try and create a product out of it. Initially, it's usually make a very simple product, a minimum viable product. And your minimum viable product, putting it out there, could be something as simple as, a bunch of PowerPoint presentations, slides. It could be something that is like a spreadsheet that, or a simple form, Google form or whatever kind of form that people can fill, to indicate an interest in something or to ask for something. For instance, if you were selling, say, products, right? And you thought of selling art online, or you thought of selling or creating something that gives people like a virtual assistant, or I don't know, whatever thing you come up with. You don't have to entirely build, raise money, build an app, build a website to begin to understand whether people want your product or not, right? You should be able to, first of all, condense that product into a very simple pitch. Asking somebody, if you did this, would you pay for this, right? Or I'm creating a product that would make it easier for people who are into this kind of business to sell their products to people in this particular part of the world, or to make their products more accessible. So you should be able to describe what you want to do and say, yes, I want to use some technology to make this process a little bit easier. Either a mobile phone, an app, or a website that just makes it easier for people to be able to get this and get that. And then if you can be able to communicate that, that starts looking like, okay, you have an idea and you can get a little bit of feedback from people. The third part of, going through this, do I want to start a startup? Do I want to build a startup? Is you probably need a team, right? So it's idea, product, team, and execution. Those are the 4 parts that I remember that come to my companies when you want to do something small or you want to launch something new. It is these four things that everyone sort of has to worry about or consider. What is the idea? How do we quickly make this a product without wasting too much time so that people can test it? Who are the people that we're going to need, or do we have all the skills that are required to put this out there? And let's just go out there and do it. Let's execute. Let's do it, get feedback, and then kind of make some changes to it. So for me, if your idea is out there, the you need to do is you just need to test it. You need to do this with a template, with sort of like an app builder or a no-code tool, or even a prototyping tool, be it Figma or Balsamic or something, or Adobe XD, and let somebody else apart from you have a way. Just show it to someone and say, if you had this, what would you do? I'll give you a classic example. How many people read the manual or the how-to tutorial for WhatsApp, right? I don't remember reading a manual on how to use WhatsApp, right? The product is put in front of you and sort of like you can, this looks like a box. This looks, I can type this here, I can click that, and then I can press send, and I sort of expect what should happen, and I know what to do next, right? Okay, maybe I want to reply. Should I hold something down? Should I quote it? Should I highlight it? So in many ways, in coming up with sort of like a product, the first thing is to sort of have the idea that this is going to make something easier, faster, more convenient for people. And then when you're done with that, quickly as possible, try and create something simple or similar that someone can touch and give you feedback. It is so important to talk to your potential users or some potential customer and see how they would interact or feel your product, and then come back to you. Once you get a little bit of feedback or what people will call traction, some positive response, I think it's very okay to try and build that out. Whether it's within a company, you're trying to come up with a new idea, or you as somebody who has built something, you want to start something out there, then you probably can go out and say you want to build a minimum product. But definitely, it's not something you jump away from your current job or whatever you're doing and just saying, I'm going out there to start a startup. You need to put your product out there, get some feedback, and get some semblance that people could use this or want this before you go through the entire startup entrepreneurship journey.
Those are very valid points, and thank you so much for sharing. The next question is somewhat similar to the one you just answered, but let me ask it just in case. It says, as a junior back-end web dev, when is the appropriate time for me to kickstart my ideas in form of startup? It's somewhat similar to the other question, but do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think as a junior back-end dev, the first thing I would say is, do you have the front-end skills to maybe bring your product to life? And I don't think it is necessary to start a startup just because you want to start a startup, right? Or just because you have the technical skill to build something. As a junior backend dev, I think I would totally recommend you get a little bit of experience and work, delivered something end to Teams project, or you work with like a dev shop that builds something for people. I would honestly recommend that you have the experience of seeing an idea come to life and seeing that idea out there and people testing it or working with it. So if you are in a position where you have thought of, let's pull you out of the equation, not you thinking of something. Somebody in your team, somebody in the company you work for, somebody has thought of something and says, we should build a fintech API so that all the fintech companies in Nigeria or all the fintech companies in Africa can connect to this API and not have to connect one after the other. You should be able to see that process of how somebody thought of this. Who are the people that got involved to bring this product to life? They had a back-end dev, they had some front-end guys, they had some product management guys, or they had somebody who had all these complementary skills. You know, they used this framework, they built on this, they released it here, they hosted it on, you know, Google Cloud or AWS. They did a WordPress, whatever they did. And then in the end, people started using it. I may be a bit opinionated about this, but I honestly strongly believe that if you've never seen this process from end to end, you've never researched this process from end to end and answered all the questions, at least most of the questions that make up this step, I don't think you're in the best position to jump out and go and build something, because the code, whether it's front end and back end, it is not 50-50. That front end and back end is like 20% or even 10% of the entire startup. You know, there's legal, there's raising money, there's regulatory compliance, there's putting out there, there's marketing, there's sales, there's partnerships, you know, there's, you know, so many other aspects to building that. So if it is going to start your startup from just participating as a dev on a project or in a company, I want you to be sure that you have looked at all the ends or interrogated every skill set or every team or individual that got involved in taking something from beginning to end. Until you've sort of done that and you can check those boxes and be sure that you know the tools, you know the frameworks, you know the languages, you know the hosting providers and the partnerships and some idea of the cost, what those things cost, I wouldn't recommend you jump out and go create a startup or a product or launch a product for a startup.
Thank you very much. Now, the next question is directly at you.
Okay.
How did you get into Google?
Very interesting. Let me see if my video works so that I'm sure I'm still there. How did I get into Google? Okay. Interesting question. I got an email. That was the first thing that came to my mind. And I picked up the email, I read through it, and they were like, hey, there's a particular role at Google. We think you'd be a great fit. The interesting part of that particular experience was the role I work in Google now. There was somebody working in this exact role in Nigeria, and I knew the person, right? And I'd interacted with the person in that role. So when I got an email that said, hey, there's this role available, I think you might be the right fit. The first thing that came to mind, I was like, probably this is Emeka's role. So I did a little bit of research, checked on the Google Careers website, the role was still available. I knew when Emeka was leaving that the role was going to be available. And then interestingly, what I looked through was I tried to do some reverse engineering on the email name that sent me. Of course, it was coming from a google.com email address, but I wanted to make sure it was not a phishing attack or anything. So I probably did some, pick the name, first name, last name of the person, and did some search on LinkedIn and other stuff to see whether the person was, in quote, real, and then responded to the email. And I still had some doubts about it. And I was like, okay, I'll continue with this process until they ask me to give my account number or pay some money to somewhere. Then I will know that, okay, they're trying to get me, and then I will jump off this train. But interestingly, over a period of 3 to 4 months, I went through a series of interviews and eventually did get the role, a role I wasn't expecting. Also about choosing a career, which is where I talked about, I hope this came through earlier on when I said letting your career choose you. If you look at a lot of the things I'd done, I basically started out as a web developer, and I used to work a lot with CMSs, WordPress and Drupal at the time, and then when I spent some time at Paga, I was sort of introduced into a product management, product associate kind of role, which I didn't even understand at the time, and in hindsight, I'm just imagining if I had sort of stayed on that path for 10 years, product managers are the rave right now. Even when I look at a lot of some of the top CEOs and, people delivering in some of the biggest companies in the world, they sort of have a product management background. This is a strong technical understanding of how products work, what you need to put together to stitch together. Some of them can roll up their sleeves and code. Maybe they don't code anymore, but they also know how to interact with businesses and partners and every other thing. And I did a little bit of, that sort of product management, and I was a bit involved in the community. And I think that sort of visibility and recognition of, going to meetups, interacting with people, asking questions, trying to put my work out there. At some point, I used to write a little bit of blog posts. I used to share on social media. And I think I had an updated LinkedIn profile. When it comes to some of the recruiting that happens with bigger companies, I think now more than even 5 years ago, when Google or even earlier, what you put blog, whether you have a portfolio, Dribble, or you have done something or made a fork of a repo and then did a little bit of work out there, or you built a project while you were at Zuri or something, and then you put it out there and just wrote about what you built. Don't necessarily feel that it had to be too complicated or too advanced before you share it. Just say, I built this, built XYZ. This is very important when a technical recruiter, and that's another role that happens in company. Somebody just literally puts your name in LinkedIn or Google or somewhere and tries to see what comes back. Or when you are submitting your CV or profile and someone is looking at what your sort of history or credentials are. So it's kind of quite important that you put yourself out there. So I think in my situation, I think to some extent I was out there. I think to some extent it is very likely I could have gotten referred or a recommendation. But most importantly, I think if you just put in a little bit of effort and put yourself out there, you're very likely to get hired. The second thing I want to say is, with many companies, and I can give you just from developer relations, there are so many branches and there are so many situations where some of the roles you see from the outside are not the roles that are needed on the inside. You may just see software developer, you may just see front end, back end, but inside the company, there are a lot of other things they're looking for. They could be looking for a site reliability engineer. They could be looking, even within DevOps, there are a number of other branches, or other specific requirements that a recruiter or a company or an individual could be looking for, which is why I said sometimes you do not know exactly the career you're going to end up in. For heaven's sake, some companies that some of you might work in the next 5 years, some companies that exist right now didn't exist 7 or 8 years ago. Look at the ride-hailing and logistics space. This is a fusion of, logistics, traffic, geography. There's some machine learning in estimation around price, estimated time of arrival, right? And it's built a very big business right now. And there's a lot of complex challenges and problems to solve with demand forecasting, with expanding into new territories. So a lot of the roles that you may see right now didn't even exist, right? If you look at some of the companies in the social media space, I'm talking about privacy, regulation, talking about, political, aspects of like how is social media influencing, elections and stuff like that. Some of those roles are so, how would I put it? They're so specific and they've evolved from things that didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago. So when I say let your career choose you, or do enough to get tons of experience where you might fit into a role where you're not necessarily writing code, but you're still in the tech.
Okay, he has dropped off, but that was a very,
So
very.
it should be all good
he's
now.
back.
I'll switch back to my fiber connection. It's finally come up.
Okay, great. Out of midway, I think you're about to round up before you let the call.
Yeah. Can you tell me exactly where I stopped? So I just used like 10 seconds to wrap it up. What did you hear last?
The cutoff was I'm not sure I remember the exact words before you left, but
let your
so
career choose you.
let your
Okay.
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
say let your career- So what I was trying to say with let your career choose you is a lot of the roles as the technology evolves may not currently exist right now. Companies that a lot of people work for right now are doing things that 5 years ago did not even exist, right? So think of a lot of the social media companies, don't necessarily have to mention names, are so active in the political space right now. There's things around, privacy, there's things around, censoring, there's things around how do you moderate speech and things like that. How do you create a fair and equitable environment? And I can tell you for free that there are lots of very senior roles and very engaging roles in this space where things around behavior psychology are really very important, and even some appreciation of tech. What can you do, what can you not do, are so important that you may not necessarily just think, oh, I want to be a front end guy or a back end guy, and that's where it ends, or I want to be a front end dev. When you slip into a role, or when an opportunity comes your way, or if someone is reviewing you for some of these roles, they may realize that your background in humanities or social science or political science or government or statistics may really make you a good fit for a particular role. It also happens when you're already working within a company and then maybe a crisis comes up, right? Something happens and the company has to quickly pivot or has to roll out a team to do something. And then they look through and say, this person came from this background, has a little bit of experience in this, so maybe it may be great to do that, right? So keep your options open. Keep doing as much as you can, acquiring as much knowledge as you can, not just pure tech knowledge, but keep abreast of what the situation is. Obviously right now there's a lot of conversations around decentralized finance and crypto technologies and blockchain and all that. It does seem like for the next 5-10 years or forever, this is still going to be a very important aspect of when we think of money of the future, right? Or the money of the present. So in many ways, I would say as you sort of navigate your career and you try to keep your eyes and your ears open about what's happening, look around you and see how well you can understand some of these complementary spaces, so that some of the skills you acquire, you find them useful if you're being considered for a role or joining a new company.
Thank you very, very much, Anidi. This question, a lot of beginners and some a bit advanced developers or techies are quite concerned about this question, and that is, how do I know that I am job ready?
You're never job ready, right? I can tell you for free. I'll give you myself as an example. There are a couple of opportunities that I may even be looking at within my company, projects that come up, or things that are, and I keep asking myself, am I ready to do this? Can I switch? Should I jump to this? Is this for me? I think the first thing you need to do is just keep an open mind, that you want to take a leap of faith. You want to put yourself out there, right? And that's usually the first thing to realize that you're jobbing. Obviously, you cannot just start learning the technology today and take a course today and say tomorrow you want to do something, right? You have to put in some work. But you don't have to go from know the whole technology end to end, right? For me, I think the first thing to do is to have a framework for getting things done, learning things. How do you learn the basics? Like really look at the fundamentals of what you want to do. If you want to go into front end, you look at very, very basic fundamentals. It's HTML, it's CSS, it's a bit of JavaScript, and then you go and then you learn one framework, and that's fine, right? Then at that point, you can say maybe you're ready for a junior role. You should start asking for that role. To make sure you're ready for that role, similar to what I said about the back-end person, try and do the minimum viable things that are suggested of someone who's a beginner in that role. Build a blog from scratch, right? Build a chat app from scratch, like trying to see if you can do this. It may not look pretty, but it should work, right? If you're a back-end person, that, there's APIs, there's this, that. Try and go build one of those things that you can clearly say, oh, I built an API or a middleware or a layer for this, or I contributed to some sort of project. So once you've gotten project experience, either because you've put yourself up for an internship, you participated in a program where you guys built something and you put it out there for people to judge you, I think you're ready for your first role, right? If you're in a role like you're a junior dev or you're a developer, let's remove the junior and senior dev. Let's say you have a little bit of experience, and then you start thinking of, oh, there's an opening for an engineering manager or a team lead within my company, or I want to switch to another company and be a team lead, or I want to apply for a remote role. I think the only way you can know whether you're ready or not is when you apply and you get feedback. I think the fear of failure is something that keeps people from getting the kind of feedback that they need. You'll be shocked that a lot of the information that you have, a lot of the work you've already done is enough to get you to start in the new role. Oftentimes, many people don't expect that you come onto the job and have all the skills necessary. There may be a few bad, unfavorable companies or employers that feel that you need to know everything before you join. But I think more likely than not, and with my experience in the industry, you don't need to know everything before you join. You just need to know the basics, and you need to have that willingness to sort of ramp up as you learn along. And then you need to be open and honest. The last thing you want to do is lie on your resume or your CV. I can do this, I can do that, right? Show the things you've done and sort of express a willingness to learn new things, and even show the ability that you can learn something, quite fast and on the job. I think that's one of the ways to get noticed and to stand out from the rest of people looking for that opportunity, whether it's a new role or it's stepping up to a senior role.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Renee. I guess we can take one more question. Okay, he says, how can a biology teacher leverage on UX design and data analytics skills? Is a switch possible?
Well, that's a tough one. I'm not a biology teacher. I didn't even do very well in biology in school, even though I did take it. I think it is very interesting. Like, here's what I think you really need to understand. Let me be quite careful about this. The human body is really like a trailer trove of information. I mean, a lot of the information, a lot of the complexities, a lot of the uncertainties that we have modeled in the world about data, about chaos, about climate, about so much information. In my opinion, or from what I know, a lot of that is replicated in the human body. Like, people talk about how much information, terabytes or petabytes of information are stored in DNA, right? There's a lot that we do not know about the brain. The human body as an entity generates so much information, whether it's your heartbeat, your oxygen levels, your blood. There are billions and millions of cells. And of course, you see there are lots of interesting applications with health and fitness, wearable devices, companies like, Fitbit recently got acquired by Google. There's a lot that goes into fitness nowadays, health and vitality. There's so many apps, so many innovations that are playing in this space. So when you start thinking of the knowledge I already have about maybe the human body or the human anatomy, how can I apply that in a data analytics way? I would say start doing a little bit of research, or start doing a little bit of, I won't say it's research, I want to call it curiosity. Because if I say research, it may look like this big thing that I need to go and do a master's or go and do a PhD for. Start getting interested in, how does this work? If you have a wearable device, an Apple Watch or an Android thing, or you wear a Fitbit, or you have, when you jog, you put a phone in your pocket and it measures your distance and all that, I would say start getting a little bit interested in things like that. Unfortunately, you may not have all the opportunities you need right now within a country like Nigeria, but think of the world as your global market. And without even going very far, there are companies in the health tech space in Nigeria, that are doing things around medical records, that are trying to do things around better diagnostics. So for me, I think being curious and trying to find great examples, great stories, great discoveries in the health tech space, and what some of your favorite companies may be doing that may not be front and center in a lot of things they do. For instance, I'll give you a little bit about Google. Google has an entire thing around Google Health. So there's a Google Health division. And if you watch the recent Google I.O., we talked a little bit about some of the things we're doing in the health sector. There's been a little bit of, there's been more interest and discoveries around how can we, assist people that are blind or do things around diabetic retinopathy? How can we look at an image of an eye and use machine learning and AI to figure out whether this person is at risk of a disease or stuff like that? So my first thing for you would be, as you have the biology background and as you're learning data analytics skills, take like a step away and just be curious about what is happening in that space. What else are people doing? Do research, find interesting projects or products that are out there, and just ask and watch videos, read a few blog posts, Nature magazine, Google Health, whatever it is, and find out what are in those areas and see whether some of the knowledge you have is applicable there, and start looking for either opportunities to further your education or get a job in that space or collaborate in that space. So if there's some open source projects in that space, and try and become part and parcel of those groups or participate there. Okay,
that's a good one. Just one last question. You mentioned this while you were talking about how you got into Google, that we should try to put ourselves out there. So someone asked, what are the ways in which we can put ourselves out there? Could you just highlight some ways in which we can do that?
Yeah, I'll start from the one I'm very conversant about, which is getting involved in the community, right? So there are lots of communities out there. I mean, Zuri, the HNG, and all the things that have come around this process have been great communities where people are helping one another, right? So if you go ahead with this program and you join a group, whether it's a Google developer group, a Facebook circle, or a follow, anything that they talk about tech communities, and there's so many, She-Code Africa, Product Dive, get involved in these communities. There's something we call a community contribution curve, community commitment curve. I wish I could share the link. Let me even just look at about it. And it talks about how you get involved with the community. You first of all start as an attendee or a learner. You sign up, you join the community, and you start listening. As you go along the way, there's some other things that come. You hear, you learn. Then you start contributing, and contributing could be everything from volunteering to say, oh, we want to have an event. Let me reach out to help you get a speaker. This was written by one of my colleagues, Alfredo. And I'll paste it in the chat here. I'll paste it in the chat. Oh, the chat is disabled. If you could enable chat for me, I could put it in the links. You start participating in the community, start getting things done. And then you start taking some ownership, start doing things, and then you start leading. So putting yourself out there is everything from giving talks, sharing your knowledge. If this program comes around full cycle, being a mentor, being an organizer, going out to contribute to even smaller programs like a STEM program. They're doing a kids training program, or it's Africa Code Week, or teaching children how to program or something, or giving some advice. So I think the first thing is to cross that hurdle of putting it out there. You may go into making YouTube videos about something that you learned. Don't worry if your channel has only 5 subscribers and if your video gets only 2 views. It gets interesting when you become consistent about it. So whether it's writing a blog post, giving a talk at an event, raising up your hand to ask questions at the event, that's like, don't be scared. It's not like a stupid question. Don't be shy. Sort of try to get noticed. If you also go for events, especially when in-person events come back, hopefully soon, try and create a rapport with someone who gives a talk. Not just getting to know the person for the person's sake, but if someone says something that is interesting and applies to you, be one of those people that is a little bit out there. When the speaker gives a talk and is walking away, you can go and ask for their contact, or if they say, please follow me on Twitter or send me a DM, do that, right? Or approach them on the corridor or outside on the talk and then have an interaction with them. If there are conferences, if there are events, do a little bit. It could cost you some time, money, and resources, but put a little effort to just make those networking connections, which I feel are professional networking connections. These are connections that are helpful for your job helpful for your career. So those would be my kind of like get involved in the community and start doing things a little bit, contribute to open source, apply for an internship, write a blog post, make a YouTube video, comment on somebody's work, contribute to something else. These are some of the things you can do, in my opinion, to put yourself out there. And then definitely this can get you visibility or get you noticed in the future.
Thank you very much for answering all of our questions. And it was a very, very interesting talk from start to finish. We're glad that you're able to join us today. For everyone here, please follow Anidi on Twitter. I don't know, is there any other social media that's here?
No, Twitter is fine. Twitter is fine. The second thing one big piece of advice when it comes to choosing a career and understanding the breadth of careers is, you may ask questions, and you may go and Google what are careers in technology. Even when I wanted to give this talk, I said, let me do a quick refresher and just go and Google careers in technology and see what comes up and look at the different definitions. I didn't want to spend time giving definitions, even though I got interrupted by my connection of what is a UX. You can get those textbook definitions directly from Wikipedia or from the net. But more importantly, go and look at some of the companies, especially those that do a lot of hiring, and see kind of the open roles that they have, or just browse through their careers page. You'll be amazed the variety of jobs that they're looking for people for. You may feel you might find some to apply for, but that can give you some sense of like everything is not just about writing, React or Node.js or Python. There's a decent spread from the non-technical roles in a technical company all the way to the technical role. So every company has a careers page, Google Careers or Facebook Careers, Uber Careers, Dropbox Careers, Flutterwave Careers, hotels careers. Look at the career pages and you'll be very, very impressed. Especially, like I said, especially the companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees, and you'll be impressed by the variety of jobs. I mean, there's usually a joke that says that I think in a company like Google, where there's like 100,000 staff, probably there's 10,000 lawyers and another maybe 10,000 accountants. And that may blow your mind that there's so many non-coder roles in many of these companies, but you need to be aware of that so that helps you guide yourself when choosing a career, in quotes, in technology.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone on the call learned so much from you today. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. So that is pretty much the end of the talk today. Please follow Anidi on Twitter. His name is Anidi Udo. I just did, so I expect that everyone on the call should also follow him on Twitter. We'll share the link on Slack if need be. Thank you so much once again, Anidi. Thank you all for joining the Career Talk today. We'll see you all next time on another episode of Career Talk. Bye, guys.